Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, one person shot dead as anti-government protests in Kenya grow increasingly violent. Also, US Vice-president Kamala Harris announces an aid package and development cooperation with Ghana as she kicks off an Africa tour that will also take her to Tanzania and Zambia until April the 2nd. And a Rwandan refugee excites the African fashion circuit with his collection that draws on trauma and tradition. Nyambo Masa wows at South Africa's Fashion Week. But first, at least one person has died in Kisumu, Kenya, on Monday as police clashed with protesters. The victim was shot dead during opposition rallies in the childhood city of Raila Odinga, the political leader who lost last August's election to current President William Ruto. Odinga spearheaded 2 weeks of demonstrations against the government and the rising cost of living. Odinga's camps also accused the government of being behind attackers who had targeted property belonging to Odinga's family and another site owned by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, who backed Odinga during last year's race. Our Vivian Wandera talks us through.
The opposition leaders' mass protests continued this Monday after days of back and forth with the country's Inspector General. Despite a ban in place and a warning to not hold any demonstrations, Odinga and his supporters from different parts of the country came out to protest against the high cost of living. Odinga, his convoy and his supporters were fought by the police using water cannons and tear gas. In Raila's strongholds in Nairobi, his supporters were barricaded inside their neighborhoods. This is what they had to say.
But it was peaceful, but the policemen are making it turn like this. Like you see the tear gas and live bullets. It's not because Kenyans like war. We are just fighting for our rights.
Gachagua and Ruto are doing the wrong thing. Us as citizens, we have the right to talk, to demonstrate, and to raise the issues that are affecting us.
Baba should continue with what he's doing. We support him. We love him. We will always be supporting him. We'll never be supporters wake to the fullest, fully.
In the early hours of the protest, people who are alleged to be hired guns invaded the property of the immediate former president and a gas company belonging to the former prime minister. While addressing his supporters, Odinga called for a reduction of the cost of living and for access to the election servers. He also added that they will hold protests every Monday and Thursday until their demands are met.
Our Vivian Wandera there for us. Now, the US Vice President kicked off a 3-nation Africa tour on Monday after touching down in Ghana. Kamala Harris will also be travelling to Tanzania and Zambia on a trip that's due to last until April the 2nd. Our Olivia Bizo tells us more.
Kamala Harris has kicked off her 9-day trip to Africa by announcing security aid in Ghana and other countries in the region.
To help address the threats of violent extremism and instability, today I am pleased to announce $100 million in support of Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. Last week, President Joe Biden announced a strategic plan for coastal West Africa as part of the United States strategy to prevent conflict and promote stability.
The trip is the latest in a series of tours by senior US government figures. Their aim, to deepen diplomatic ties with Africa and to counter growing Chinese and Russian influence on the continent.
The relationship between the United States and this continent and African leaders is an important one. There's a historical basis for the relationship, not to mention as we look forward, as all governments should, and recognize the unachieved, as of yet, opportunities that exist going forward.
China has invested heavily in Africa in the past 2 decades, while Russia's private military contractor Wagner Group is providing security assistance in several countries.
No, there may be an obsession in America about the Chinese activities on the continent, but there's no such obsession here. About China is one of the many countries with whom Ghana is engaged in the world. Your country is one of them. Virtually all the countries of the world are friends of Ghana.
After Ghana, Harris will travel to Tanzania and Zambia.
France 24 has released a statement saying that it regrets the decision by Burkina Faso's government to suspend the channel. The channel is, though, still available via Eutelsat 16A and SES 5 on YouTube and on digital platforms. In other news, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan is in full swing after beginning last Thursday. Now, billions of Muslims around the world will be breaking their daily fast with the iftar meal. In Senegal, it's known locally as Ndogu and usually consists of several sweet treats as well as the main dish. But this year, a nationwide sugar shortage is playing havoc with the traditional food on offer. For more on this, Sam Bradpiece tells us more from Dakar.
Sugar is a key ingredient of Ndogu, the breaking of the fast practiced by millions of Muslims here in Senegal during Ramadan. It's poured copiously into coffees and baked into pastries and cakes. But because of soaring demand, there's now a shortage in much of the country, much to the distress of many in this Dakar market.
I've not been able to get a hold of sugar at all during Ramadan. Not just today. Even from who we are used to buying from. You now need to order in advance.
Recently, it's been a real struggle trying to get sugar. There's a massive shortage. It's difficult to find, even from wholesalers.
Senegalese officials say that 25,000 tons of sugar have been imported into the country. This sugar should reach local markets in the next few days.
Sam Bradpiece there for us in Dakar. Now, the 15th Cape Town Fashion Week ended over the weekend. One of the young designers reshaping the industry is Nyambo Masa. The Rwandan refugee is now based in Cape Town, but draws inspiration from his own turbulent history. Nadine Theron tells us more.
Rushing backstage, Nyambo Masa is anxious. He's opening Cape Town Fashion Week with a very personal new collection called Silence the Guns. It's inspired by post-war trauma in Rwanda. Even his hairstyle is linked to heritage and history. It represents the Rwandan cows he grew up with.
You know, growing up in refugee camps, when I finally got a place that allows me to speak, and the fashion and art allowed me that, give me that voice, gave me the platform to speak and communicate of the long time silenced voices, and now the world is listening.
And this is my story.
His label, Masamara, means something from nothing. After fleeing the war in 1994, Nyambo lived in refugee camps in the DRC, Uganda and Burundi, ending up in South Africa at the age of 12, where he became a tailor. He's now being hailed as the hottest young talent on the scene. The African fashion industry is expected to be worth around 13.5 billion euros by 2025. Africa Fashion International wants these entrepreneurial designers to sell.
It's not just about the runway, it's also about saying, hey, here's these garments done beautifully with amazing craftsmanship, and you can get them immediately.
Pop-up stores at the event allow customers to buy straight from the runway. Masamara will be showing in Geneva in May, and his clothes are already available online in Europe.
For the first time here in Paris, 2 exhibitions will be featuring the work of the Senegalese photographer Adama Sylla. He's been documenting life and change in his hometown of St. Louis for more than half a century. Our correspondents went to meet him.
At his family home, Adama Sylla is busy signing prints that will go on display in Paris. There are a variety of works, studio portraits, street shots and pictures from special events and ceremonies. Adama Sylla captured the essence of St. Louis for more than 50 years.
I was in demand all over St. Louis. I currently have more than 40,000 photos in this workshop. It's thanks to photography that I was able to build this house.
Adama Sylla was more than the average studio photographer. He pushed boundaries and developed his own unique style, which impressed the curators of the Paris exhibitions.
What I find extremely interesting is the relentlessness and intensity of his work. You can see it in the shapes and in the colours. I was immediately amazed by its sensitivity, which you don't always find in the works of other photographers of this generation. He passed under the radar for too long.
Adama Sylla is highly respected in St. Louis, but is little known beyond the city. He is originally from Genda, a neighbourhood cut off on a peninsula between the sea and the river. He opened a photography studio here in 1995, much to the delight of local residents.
The boss? Yeah, I know him well. Back then, when he lived in the neighborhood, he took photos of all of us. His studio was full every time there was an event.
When everything else is gone, the photos will stay behind. I'm happy with my success in a field that is truly important and necessary in life.
Adama Sylla hasn't put down the camera just yet. He's currently focused on documenting the coastal erosion blighting his community.
Well, that's it for Iron Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.